And that's how you have world peace forever. Don't you hate just coming in at the end of something or cutting into the middle of a discussion? But that's what we have to do, because we try to keep these around 35 minutes. And last week we were in Mark chapter 13, still are, and we had read verse 32 about the day that Jesus returns and the whole era is over, and he gathers his own, and we're going, and now we quit. And so we're still right there. I hope that you listened last week, because it's really important to get the context. Jesus says in verse 32, we'll read it again, all right? No extra charge. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, be alert. You don't know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you don't know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to everyone, watch. Now, does that mean that we're to live our lives constantly in fear that Jesus is coming back at any moment? No. Why would we do that? When he comes back, he's coming back as our Savior. That's not fearful. Instead, look at this. He said he gives each of the servants their assigned task. What is your task? To love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said that wraps up the whole law and the prophets. So do that. What does that look like? Well, frankly, it may look different in Dar es Salaam than it does in Seattle, than it does in Mexico City, than it does in Edinburgh. Whatever it looks like where you are, that's what you do. And we read Scripture to find out how God and man have interacted through the ages, and see, especially in the rest of the New Testament after the Gospels, how did they apply the reality of Jesus to this weird, broken world in which they found themselves. And we can learn lessons from that to help us love God and love our neighbors as ourselves. When Jesus comes, he'll come. It's not up to us. And staring hard won't make him come sooner. He will come when God says it's the right time and not before. Now, if you want to know more about this, as we've said in the last week, you really need to read the Matthew version, where he starts with just a big pounding of the religiously arrogant people who think they know everything and are better than the other people because their religion is more religion-y than their religion. And then he talks about these things in greater detail, Matthew chapters 23 and 24. The Olivet Discourse. And I always like to bring 23 into it as well, because you got to get beaten into some humility before you can accept the simplicity of what he is saying in 24. And I say you, I mean me. Then chapter 14. Remember, Jesus is in his last week of earthly life before the cross. Now, the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or the people may riot. So if you want to kill the Son of God, you got to be smart about it, is what they're saying, which we look at this and we go, what? Actually, it's not that hard to understand if you've dealt with humans before. Most of us have met humans, right? What happens if Jesus is recognized by all as the Son of God and the King? Well, several things. The religious elite lose their power immediately because you have your high priest and the Messiah. The priesthood's over. All of their perks are over. Their leadership over the people religiously, and they didn't draw a line between religion and secular, so their power over the people evaporates because now the greater one has come. But add to that, and because that's pretty horrible thoughts right there, but add to that the fact that Rome will come in with everything it's got, and they don't want that to happen either. They want to keep everything as it is. Don't want to change anything. Like 99% of all churches don't want to change anything. They want to keep everything here, keep everything peaceful, even if it's not really good. Let's keep it peaceful. Even if the people in power aren't really Christ-like, let's keep stasis. Let's keep everything the way it's always been. Jesus is not interested in that. In fact, if you don't like change, you've picked the wrong universe, because everything here changes, and that might be a clue about the kind of God we have. Read Romans 1. Everything that can be known about God can be known by the things that he made. So we should be paying attention to the things he made and see what they tell us about our God. Well, Passover, chief priests are plotting to kill him. Jesus is in Bethany, just a few miles from Jerusalem, reclining at the table at the home of Simon the leper. A woman came in with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. I've had Bible class teachers that then go off on what nard is and how nard's made and how it smelled and how. We don't need that. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is she brought this incredibly expensive perfume, all right? She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. What, you might be looking at that going, "Oh, but she's pouring it on Jesus." All right, first of all, pouring it on a man you're not married to, that was a bit scandalous. Well, it was a lot scandalous at the time. And one of the rules they had, men and women didn't mess with each other's, well, they didn't touch, period, but especially not feet and not hair. And so just like in Luke 7 with a different woman, there has been a violation of all the social codes right here. And then second, as I said, it's more than a year's wages. Now, before we get any further, we need to understand that in this story, if we are anybody, we are the apostles making the complaint. I can remember coming back to this country in the 80s, and we bought ourselves a little Plymouth Horizon, which, if you don't remember those cars, count yourself lucky. But we thought it was amazing because it could hold 4 medium-sized people. That was incredible. Had automatic transmission. Oh my goodness. Even power steering. We'd come from where we had before a 2-cylinder car, a Citroen 2CV, 0 to 60 by Thursday sometime. And so to have this was amazing. And then a guy in our church pulled up in a brand new Mercedes, and it wasn't one of the lower ones, it was one of the top ones. And I can remember judging him like that and thinking, all that money? That's way too much money. Why would you put that much? I was doing the same thing. Absolutely. I've seen on Twitter and Facebook people putting up videos of a preacher, and they'll say, "Look at those shoes cost this much, look at the jeans." By the way, I had no idea people were trying to figure that out. If you're trying to figure this out here, Kohl's and clearance sales at Jose Banks. There you go. Feet by Skechers. But why are we doing this? Because a lot of people in the world could look at my things, which were all bought with red tags on them and sales around them, and it's still better than the stuff they own. And they could judge me for so don't play that game. But we do, don't we? We do. And it's a shame. So they were missing what was going on. Jesus has told them, "We're going, I'm going to be turned in, I'm going to be suffer and die, you're going to be hauled before courts," and all. And they're thinking in their heads, it's probably some metaphor. And so they're concentrating on this woman's wasting money that we could have had and given to the poor. We find in other versions of the story, Judas was really the one leading this, and he was a treasurer, and he really was leading it because he wanted that money in the bag because he liked to steal from the bag. All right? You see, motives are never quite as pure as we paint them to be. Jesus rebuked them harshly. They rebuked her. He says, "Leave her alone." I don't know how people think Jesus said that, like, leave her alone. No. Jesus was the son of, most people say carpenter, most likely a stonemason, he would have had the muscles and scars and thick tendons of 30 years growing up with that. And that's only a few years in the rearview mirror now. He says, leave her alone. You look at the way Jesus protected women. He wasn't being some little, sweet, leave her. No. This would have come out as a bark. Why are you bothering her? She's done a beautiful thing for me. The poor you'll always have with you. Now, by the way, that's not dismissive of the poor, saying, oh, you're always going to have poor people around. No, he's saying, no. You want to take care of the poor, you will have that opportunity the rest of your lives. You can help them anytime you want, he says, but you will not always have me. There are priorities. When my mother fell and we knew this was going to be the end, because by the first day, she was not able to speak and she would keep talking, but the words meant nothing. We knew this was a brain bleed that was going to take her, and she was in hospice. We were not going to go do massive surgery on a 92-year-old woman's brain. Took her 8 days to die, and we knew she would. That day, we sat with her. The next morning, I went to check on her, saw that this was not going to improve, and I just sat down in a chair, made a call or text to my wife, I can't remember which one, saying, I'm staying here. Everything else is done. Why? Because nothing is greater priority than a person who needs you. Not your work schedule, not anything else. People are the priority. With my staff, I've always done that. No matter where I've lived or worked, I've told them, if your family needs you, I will be very disappointed with you if you are here. Be there. Don't worry about it. If you can't finish your job because of it, tell us what we can pick up, and the rest of it we're going to leave undone. People are the priority. And they weren't getting that. This woman is not the priority at this stage. Jesus is. He's told them he's going to die. He's told them it's going to go sideways with a vengeance in just a couple of days, and they're still not getting it. And he's saying, she gets it. You don't get it. Leave her alone. Stop bothering her. She has done what she could. Can we stop right there? I can remember teachers speaking of other kids and also speaking of me to my parents, saying he has greater potential. He's not living up to his potential. Well, frankly, I think I did okay. But here's the thing. There's not a person on the planet that has lived up to their potential. Not a one. Not a person among us has done the best they could, not only in the whole of their lives, but also in the minutia of the day, the moment of the day. I drove here this morning safely. Nobody died. Got no tickets. But did I drive the best I could? Probably not. Do you understand how that could paralyze a person? I got to do this the best. I got to do this the best. That's actually a mental illness that we treat with counseling and medication. Nobody does the best they could. He didn't say she did the best she could. He said she did what she could. Jesus looks at your day. He understands you. Read Psalm 139. He knows when you stand up, sit down. He understands all the whys behind the words you speak and those you don't. Therefore, he looks and goes, that's what they could do. That's good. At night, I do not apologize to God for not doing the best I could. I thank him for my day, ask him to forgive me of my sins, and send me to sleep. That's it. Well, I'll talk about some people, but you know what I mean. God doesn't need me to fall before him and whip myself on the back about how bad I've been. No. I did what I could. You've done what you could. She has done what she could. What a beautiful phrase. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Stop. Cost a huge amount of money. Did it make any difference at all in the flow of history? None. Did it ease Jesus' suffering? Emotionally, maybe for a moment or two, but no. Did it stop the nails and the whips? Nope. Did it stop the diaspora, the coming destruction of Jerusalem? No. But she did what she could in the moment. And maybe we could have done something else with that money, but why are we quibbling over money? She just did what she could. That's all. It's kind of like I can remember once being in hospital, and this is a long time ago, not the recent hospitalization I had, but somebody who knew that I ate fruit and veggies mainly at the time, they bought me one of these fruit bouquets. You've seen them? But this wasn't a one-person bouquet. It was massive. It was just my wife and I, and we had a little girl, and we're looking at that going, that's a lot of pressure. That's fresh fruit already cut. It is wasting as we can't eat this kind of fruit. But we didn't say, what idiots for buying something like this. No, we understood that was their way of showing we love you. We want to do something for you. It's like flowers. I understand that they're beautiful. I don't understand why we give them to each other cut. It's kind of like I saw this thing that was beautiful, therefore I killed it, and I brought it to you so that you may slowly watch it die. A plant in a pot, I get that a lot better. I understand that more. My point being here, do we ridicule them for bringing us flowers even though we have no use for them? No. We understand what that symbolizes. So from now on, try to do that. Try to put the best possible spin on whatever people bring to you, whatever is in their life, put the best possible spin on it. More times than not, you'll be right. More times than not, if you judge them, you'll be dead wrong. He says, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. And right now, that prophecy has come true in your hearing. We are still 2,000 years later talking about this woman and about the good she did and how Jesus appreciated it and defended her when small-minded men decided it was best to judge her. Then Judas Iscariot, other versions we know why, one of the 12 went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. I've had a lot of people worry about Judas. Jesus Christ superstar makes him be treated unfairly by God. Why did you make me this way? Why the prophecies forced me into it? A lot of people have brought that up. Jesus didn't make Judas do this. This is who Judas was. Judas just revealed who he was. Jesus was going to be betrayed some way by somebody. Judas is the one who stepped up first to do it. Why? Was he disappointed with Jesus? That's generally the thought, that he thought Jesus was going to be the great Messiah that was going to ride in on a horse and overthrow the Romans. Others believe that he went sideways because of greed. Again, he held the bag of the money and he pilfered from it. And he's betraying for money. And money can make you do very stupid things. It can make you lose your family and lose your friends and lose your very soul. So maybe that's it. I don't really know. We're not given a psychological in-depth study of Judas. But something in Judas was wrong. And it went wrong publicly. Now, on the first day of the festival of the unleavened bread, down verse 12, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, where do you want us to go to make preparations for you to eat the Passover? Because it's kind of elaborate, takes a place. They don't have a place. So he sent two of his disciples, telling them, go into the city. Now listen to this. Listen. And a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, the teacher asks, where is my guest room? Where may I eat the Passover with my disciples? He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there. What? Oh, this isn't all. You take a look at the other Gospels too, Matthew and Luke, and you'll find out that there is going to be a donkey involved too. And he says, when you get to this place, you're going to see there's a colt, a small donkey a young donkey, that nobody has ridden on yet. Go ahead and take him. Anybody ask you, say, the master has need of him, and they'll let you take him. How does this work? I'll tell you how it works. You may think that every day dawns with you just kind of at a loss in a world that's all broken and it's sliding sideways. God has prepared things in the day. Jesus had already prepared things ahead of time that they knew nothing about. They didn't know the guy with the water jar. They didn't know the guy that owned the house. They didn't know Jesus knew these people. They didn't know God had prepared ahead for them. They say, where should we go prepare something for you? He lets them know, I've already prepared something for you. It's taken care of. Just walk in. Think about that. God's already prepared. I find it amazing that I will walk into a situation worried about, and yes, still at my age, after all my experience, worried about what are my resources? Will I have allies? Is this going to go okay? And then find that God has prepared things ahead of time, that I've got what I need, and here comes a blessing, and here comes the right person at the right time. Now, does this mean my life has gone smoothly? No. And I've got the scars, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical, to prove it. But even then, God prepared. All the time, God prepared. It is truly amazing if you start watching for it to see how much God prepares. Think about that. Well, disciples left, went to the city, found things just as Jesus had told them, and so they prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. While they were reclining at the table eating, he said, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who's eating with me. Now we know from John and the others, the other things occurred before this, but we're not going to do that until we get to those books, okay? So let's just go here. First of all, this is a conversation killer, isn't it? Everybody's going Passover. It's really important. You do it certain ways, ask certain questions. It's if you watch us on Palm Sunday, we're not going to act it all out this year, but I will talk it all out and talk about how the plates are placed and how the question is asked to this person. So be with us on Palm Sunday for that. And on Easter, by the way, we're going to do a narrative. It is just the story, putting all the Gospels together, of what happened the day Jesus rose from the dead. And I think you're going to see it really comes alive when you just do it as a narrative, not a sermon. But here's our story. Look forward to that. Moving back here, they were saddened. Of course they were. And one by one they said to him, surely you don't mean me. I love that. The apostles had not been known for their humility here. And I feel like they come in for a good kicking from us. We need to remember that we're only shown the teachable moments. Most of the time, these guys had faith that far exceeded you and I. But they made mistakes, but this time they didn't. The humility of saying, oh, I hope it's not me. Have I done something wrong? He says, it's one of the 12. One who dips bread into the bowl with me. Now that's what really hurts, because in the first century, you are who you eat with. When you eat with somebody, that means friendship and fellowship and acceptance. And a very person that says, I'm your friend, is the one who's going to turn against you. We all know that, don't we? Nobody can hurt you like a friend who turns on you. Nobody can hurt you like family who turns on you. And especially whenever they go around telling everybody you turned on them. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can't fix that. So all you can do is just live your life and say at the end of it, compare the lives. You know, what was the fruit of the life? Decide from that if you need to judge. But here, it's one of the 12. The Son of Man will go just as it's written about him. He keeps trying to tell him, this is going to happen. It's going to happen, but then he adds, but woe to him who betrays the Son of Man. It'd been better for him if he'd not been born. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given it, he broke it and gave it to his disciples. No, to his disciples. Doesn't say to most. Gave it to all. Jesus initiated the Passover, which becomes the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, the communion, by giving this to Judas too. Why? Because he loved Judas too. He'd come to save Judas as well. He gave it to his disciples and said, "Take it. This is my body." This is the beginning of the Christian celebration, but it is not the beginning of this at all. Christians have been celebrating this for 2,000 years, but Jews had been doing this for 1,500 years before. This is the longest continuous religious celebration in the world by far, by the factors of many, many, many. It is amazing when you look at this. There's nothing can compare to it. We at our Safe Harbor take the Lord's Supper every Sunday, but that's not the only time we take it. If somebody's going off on a mission trip, we'll take it. If there's a time of great struggle, we'll take it. When I go to visit somebody on death row, sometimes we take communion there. It's important to show this fellowship and love, this commonality of our belief in the Lord of the Passover to this very day. So we do it. And I've heard those people say, well, if you take it every week, it'll lose its meaning. Excuse me? I remember my mother who recently passed several times a day. I've never thought, I got to quit doing this or it's going to lose its meaning. I've been married to my wife for more than 44 years. And yet I still don't leave the house without giving her a hug and a kiss. It hasn't lost its meaning. It will not lose its meaning. We kiss each other every night before we go to bed. It will not lose its meaning. So there you are. He took a cup. When he'd given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. They understood pouring blood. That was an act of sacrifice, but it was never human blood. And so he's saying, I'm pouring out my blood for a sacrifice. They got that. Truly, I tell you, I will not drink it again, this cup of the Passover. They drank from that cup, by the way, several times during Passover. Again, we'll talk more about that on Palm Sunday. From the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God. So we will do this even in heaven. After what? The world lasts another 5 years, another 5,000 years. We are still going to commemorate this. And then when we all get to heaven, whether that's in some ethereal place or whether that's in a restored, renewed earth, there are two main theories. I don't care. And if you care, that's okay. You don't need to tell me why. Wherever it is, we're going to take this with Jesus. I just want to be where Jesus is, whether that's in the boat or on the sea, or whether that's in an ethereal heaven, or whether that's in a renewed earth. I just want to be where Jesus is. And wherever he is, we're going to take this. Isn't that cool? They sung a hymn, then they went out to the Mount of Olives. Now we'll do this, and we'll get through the next several verses. Jesus in Mark seems to be very sudden in his transitions because Mark is very episodic. Matthew and Luke work a little harder at transitions. John works a lot at that. But Mark is sermon illustrations, separate stories of Jesus. So they come, they sung a hymn, went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus said, you'll all fall away. We're going, wow, what happened on the walk? No, he's just, other things happen. Now they're sitting down. He's talking to them and he says, you'll all fall away, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. That's out of Zechariah 13. I find it fascinating that they knew Scripture so well, even before chapters and verses, that they could quote sections of it at will. But after I've risen, stop, hang on. You'll all fall away. I'll strike the shepherd, sheep will be scattered. You bad people, why are you like that? You're just faith. No, there's none of that. It's just like, it's going to happen. But after I'm risen, I'll go ahead of you into Galilee. In other words, you'll be scattered, but you'll know where to find me. There's none of this attack, none of this, you don't measure up, none of this, what kind of, I've wasted my years with, none of that. Jesus isn't like that. So you had a bad day, you had a bad year, you did some bad things. You've gone to Jesus and said, I don't even know how I did this or why, and I'm really sorry. And he's not up there going, maybe probation. Maybe if you say enough prayers enough times, and maybe if you give enough to the poor, then no, he's not like that. He's telling them they're going to fail him ahead of time. And he's going, so after you're done failing me, when you want to find me, I'll be in Galilee. There is no accusation, no attack here, no shame, no shame. I hope that every time you listen to us, you go away without any feeling of shame. We want to be a Jesus church, which means we're going to be really low on the judgment and minuscule, if any, shame. It's all about the glory and the love of Christ and how that transforms us daily and our loving God. That's what it's about. That's what we hope you get from us. Peter said, even if all fall away, I won't. I remember these days. I remember when I was a boy, we were always told the Soviets, the Russians are coming through the Fulda Gap. That's in Germany. Anybody in the military back in the day knows exactly where that is. And that's where the war will start. And then we're going to fire the nukes from here, and it's going to be an apocalypse. And we were always told, you're just close to the Russians taking over and banning all good things, including church. And then we'd be told, we're just little kids around the table. You know, if they put you up against a wall and say, do you believe in Jesus? Will you have the courage to say so? Will you be a Daniel? You know, that was another one. They were pretty harsh on this. And preachers would say, if being a Christian became a crime, would there be enough evidence against you to convict you? Yeah, that was pretty shame-based. Also fear-based. All the time, you had to look for the Russians under the beds. By the way, we have Russian people in Russia that listen to our podcast. I'd say hello to you, but I'm not really sure. Is that Das Vidanya? I don't know. Whatever it is, hi. We love you. What our elders said to us was said in fear, but probably in love too. So we're not against them, but we look back at that and go, fear, fear, fear. And when we were little kids, guess what we said? We said we'd be faithful, even if all else falls down. You know, no, we wouldn't. Humans. Every human, it has this problem of thinking they're the exception. No, you're not. Truly, I tell you, Jesus said, today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. Well, that's not what Peter's probably looking for. I know you do, Peter. You got my back. You're checking my 6. What a man, Peter. Instead, he goes, no, Peter, you're human. You're going to deny me 3 times, disown me. Peter insisted emphatically, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. You see, Peter gets the knock in here because Peter says it first. That's who Peter is. The others were thinking it. And so when Peter comes back at Jesus going, no, Jesus, you've got that wrong. Let me tell you about me, Jesus. I will fight and stay, and I will die with you. All the others are going, us too, us too. I love Peter. Sorry, he gets the kicking that he does. But let's remember this. After this all happens, we all know he did. We're going to look at some of this in Mark. It's a lot more fleshed out elsewhere. But even when he does, then Jesus still treats him with dignity and love. In fact, only Luke has it, but it's just one little verse. And Jesus met with Peter on the road. And that's it. Next time we see Peter, he's strong, he's brave, he's ready. Because Jesus forgave him, loved him. He goes, it's all right, buddy. You're human. This is new to you. You'll get it. I'm 67. I've never been 67 before. There's no way I'm going to get it right. And about the time I think I might have a handle on it, I'm going to be 68, and I've never been that before, and I'm going to get that wrong too. Whatever age you are, whatever stage you are. If you've got a 4-year-old, have you had a 4-year-old before? You have? Okay. You haven't had this 4-year-old. You're not going to get it all right. It's okay. Forgiveness is built into the system. And Jesus does not forgive reluctantly. We don't have to talk him into it. He does it before we even think about it because that's who he is. Keep that in mind. We're at a natural break here, so let's take a break. See you next week, as this is for the 13th of March. And so here in just a couple of weeks, we'll have Palm Sunday and Easter. Hope you can be with us then. God bless you. We'll see you soon.